Okay, welcome back to Paddy's Golf Tips. The second part of how to square the club face up at impact. Now we're going to talk about actually a little bit more technical, but what actually does the wrists do in the golf swing.
The winner of the gold medal and the champion golfer of the year is Padraig Harrington.
Okay, as I explained in the first video, if you think your body has control over the club face, you're mistaken. Your body, your hips has control over your torso has control over your shoulders control over your arms control over your hands, but ultimately it's your hands that control where that club face is. So you can get all out of sync, but your hands can recover the shot. So you've got to know what your hands and wrists are doing during the swing. The first part was very much, let's just do it instinctively by just getting the club face shut and getting the club face open, and your body will then follow that. Okay, now we're going to talk about actually a little bit more technical, but what actually does the wrists do in the golf swing. Okay, so very simple. Again, as mentioned before and several times, you do need to have a good grip. If you're struggling with the grip, go out and buy one of those. Skills.com does a lovely training aid that clips onto your club that shows you where your fingers should be on the club. It is exceptionally important to get a good grip because it's the only thing that controls the club face. So you must get that right, and it's worth your time and effort getting a really nice grip. Okay, so as we said before, all the fingers, basically fingers there, thumb on top, pad, fingers, this on top. Okay, so you can move it all around, as you can see. So how do the wrists work in the backswing? So as you're moving to get the club away, the club pretty much moves for the first part to your hips. Your hands will move as far as your hips, and all that moves is this triangle. Back in the 90s, this was called a one-piece takeaway. It's kind of lost its buzz, but you take the club to there one piece. Nothing has moved. It's not a hands takeaway, it's nothing. Essentially just to there one piece. Now here is the key. Lots of things have changed. I'll do it this way. So some people from this point will keep going wide and break their wrists late. Other people from here will go up quite a bit and break their wrists early. Not a mad fan of this one. Most people will just break their wrist gradually from this position up. Now, what way do you break your wrists? I would advocate you keep the club face square in the backswing. Okay, I'll explain why. So if we went back here, that is square right now, toe pointing up to the air. That would be open. Nobody goes for that. A lot of players go for shut now. Okay, so they actually hold the face down quite a bit. Now while this is effective for hitting long shots, and it can be a very good way, I don't think it's the most efficient way. And the biggest problem, if you have the club face shut from there, it's very hard to be a good chipper or pitcher because you want to square the club face up. For a chip shot, especially if you've got the club face square, you're going to have to use an awful lot of something to get the club face back to square. So you're better off having a nice square club face, toe pointing up at this stage. Breaks at some point up here and we're nicely in position. Remember, not this lesson in particular, but all my lessons, you never swing to a full backswing. You always swing to about 3/4 length when you're practicing without hitting a shot. The reason being is it's not dynamic. If it was dynamic and you were hitting the golf ball, your swing will go further, and that's why you always hit trees and things that you think you're going to miss when you're in the bushes. So always practicing about 3/4 length. So that's my full backswing there. Obviously, if I go to hit the ball, it would be further, but I'm swinging to there. You can see nice and neutral. I don't have my wrist bent, even though some of the best players have it bent. Yes, you can function from there and hit a great shot, but it's not the best for pitching and chipping. So nice and square at this point, okay? Wrist broken. Now, here's what happens. For most players, and when I was brought up, I was taught to narrow that angle and actually increase this here, but increase how much the club face is open, and then rotate it square through impact. Okay, that's how I was taught back in the day. Nowadays, you have a lot of guys who are shut here, and then they do nothing but just turn through impact. That's a bit too exaggerated. Obviously, it's going to be that way. okay? Whereas I would recommend that probably the most efficient way is neutral at the top, and as you pull, that motion of pulling, of stretching, as the hip pulls the torso pulls the arms, and the arm pulls the wrist, you then bow it in that position at that point. So as you narrow, God forbid, and I don't recommend anybody who is not a seriously high-end golfer to try and shallow the club, but that is what shallowing the club is. As your arm stretches and pulls towards the target, the club, this will bow and the club will shallow a little bit, okay? Way too high grade that is, but we mentioned it. So that pulling motion gets the wrists to bow from this position. Now the reason why we want the wrist strong, so we want it neutral in the backswing because we want to be a good chipper and pitcher. We want it strong at the start of a downswing on a full shot because, as I said, a strong club face is going to be the most efficient through impact, and obviously that allows us then to turn onto the ball. But here is the key, and this is what I keep seeing wrong on Instagram, okay? You do not want, once you have that strong club face, you then release that strong club face. So the wrist is moving that way through impact. Now we don't want it like that at impact, but it's moving that way. The club head is being thrown through impact, okay? If you have a situation, and this will be impact here, so I've got a strong face, I start releasing that club face, I'm turning, so the club is being thrown at the ball. Now, yes, I have what looks like a bowed wrist at impact, I have a strong face at impact. If I had that shaft, it would be actually bent that way, so there'd be a kick forward with the head, because the head is obvious. I do not do that by drifting my hands through. As we know, if we paid any attention in physics, if the top of the pendulum, if the club is the bottom of the pendulum, if the top of the pendulum is moving, that means that can't be moving as fast as we want it to be moving. That has to accelerate past your hands through impact. So a very strong wrist and then releasing some of that strength will get you in the ideal position of slightly strong face. Again, the shaft will be bent that way, but there is an element of throw through impact. So how do we get that throw through impact? Some great drills for it. It is very much a feeling of that. Now, as you can see, I'm throwing that club as hard as I can, but also trying to stop at impact. To do that, my left wrist is releasing and pulling. So my wrist is pulling back up, or the butt of the club is pulling back up and going this way to impact. That's the feeling. It's obviously an exaggeration that I'm doing here, which throws the club head past. The fact that we were in a strong position means we can still keep our wrist strong and bowed at impact, again like that, but we got to get that feeling of the club accelerating past impact. So the two things we don't want is we don't want a situation of, we definitely don't want a situation of our hands getting past our body like so and the club head behind, because that's not going to lead to a good strike and it's perilous. We also don't want this flip. We don't want that to have broken down before impact. So we want to be strong, throw, and the best way of getting that, a very simple drill, is try and stop the club face at impact. Very simple. If you try and stop that club face at impact, you're going to actually brace your body. So I'm not trying to say don't stop your body at impact, stop the club face at impact, and that will cause your body to stop. Sorry, not stop, it will cause your body to decelerate and hold on. Clearly we don't want a full stop. So if I try and stop my club face at impact, I'll actually have a little bit of throw in there, but with my hand leading that throw, so I'm in a strong position. So let me show you that. So, like if you were seriously strong, you probably could stop at impact, but in my case, that's where you see all those guys doing the sort of three-quarter follow through. Watch that three-quarter follow through. So if you stop at impact, you get a great strike. This is a training drill. Again, it's like 70 to 90% speed, okay? It's a training drill. Stop, feeling of stopping at impact will make you brace your body to do it, okay? Now, the difference I'm saying in this drill is people you see doing this drill are doing it this way and leading with this hand. If that hand is ahead of the club face through impact, like drifting past like that, you're losing strike and speed. Okay, so when you see me do the drill, I'm going to stop at impact. Okay, I have finished there, so my hands are out in front of me, but I have cupped this. I'm not like this. That would be a drift. I have let the club release. So the club is like so. Okay, there is a good extension out there in this drill, and my left wrist is up like this. It is not, I'm not holding onto that angle. I've created it, and then I'm letting it, throwing it through impact. So the picture you see at impact, so the picture you commonly see at impact with the hands above the ball like so, okay, shaft would be bending like so, okay, backwards, head like that. That is a dynamic picture. It's a still picture of a dynamic move. So the wrist is actually moving that way. Look, it's strong, it's that way it's moving. It is not moving this way. It is not holding on to that angle. It's releasing it by throwing that club at impact, and that gets the body to decel and brace up for a good strike. So you've got to have that movement, but we don't want it as a movement with our wrists so much, like we do to start off with, but clearly we don't want that position at impact, but you've got to throw the club. As you can see, if I throw it, that leads the throw and braces up. It's not so much of that move. To explain it to you, I'm always experimenting. So I'm sure they didn't think it was going to be used like this. This is the orange whip. So I broke it. By mistake, I would say. But to show you what I'm talking about, right, because we'll see it easier. I want that to go as much like that as possible. So probably better bringing it back. But you can see how much, and look how that wrist is strong when I do that. It's not this way, but the wrist is definitely releasing that way. So getting, sometimes you need the feeling of drawback to get that acceleration there. So that's a good, because it's softer, it shows more that my wrist is ahead and the club face is at the impact. Okay, you got to throw, that head has got to be thrown at the golf ball. That was a workout. The best way of doing it, definitely for me, is the feeling of stopping at impact. It doesn't stop obviously, but it's a feeling. Okay, you can try that as a speed drill. It tends to be done. That's a strike drill that I just did there. As a speed drill, tends to be done with a backswing. So you hit it and bring the club back. It's a drill. Clearly we want to finish all the way through with our knees touching, our chest up high and all that sort of stuff. We're not trying to finish like this when we're hitting a driver, but it's a good training drill to get you the feeling of strike through impact. Just a little addendum to that. When I was hitting the shots, if you were watching my club face, I said that was square. I am a little closed at the moment. I'm working to get it a little, to get the toe pointing up more in a square position. So if you do see on some of the real shots, I will definitely have the club a little bit shut down in the backswing. I don't want too much of that. I certainly don't want any more of it, and I'm working a little bit to get it a little bit more square, neutral in the backswing and creating that shut, strong face in the downswing.